the most pathetic death in horror history. So, a group of rich, bored Genzers are trapped in a mansion during a hurricane. They start playing a murder mystery game, someone actually ends up dead, and the movie turns into this frantic, neon-soaked whodunit. That's pretty much the whole plot behind Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. And now, we're looking for the secret killer, the motive, the hidden grudge. We're suspecting everyone from the quiet newcomer to the hot-headed boyfriend. It feels like a standard slasher, just with more TikTok references and vibes. But then, the ending hits, and it's not a revelation, it's an insult. It turns out there was no killer. David, the guy whose throat was slashed at the beginning, didn't get murdered by a jealous friend or a secret intruder. He died because he was trying to open a champagne bottle with a machete for a TikTok challenge, and he slipped. Look at the lighting in that final scene. When they find his phone and watch the video, the harsh, natural morning light reveals the mansion for what it is, a mess of trash and dead bodies. The neon party glow is gone, replaced by a cold reality. The twist isn't just a plot point, it's a big old spotlight on the character's narcissism. They were so convinced they were in a high-stakes horror movie that they slaughtered each other over a complete accident. It betrays the audience's expectation of a grand design or a mastermind. The horror wasn't a monster or a killer, it was just their own stupidity and paranoia. Who'd have thought? Definitely not them. When your mother is a ghost in your own head. Let's talk about Goodnight Mommy. This 2014 Austrian nightmare is built on one simple, terrifying premise. Two twin boys suspect that the woman who returned from the hospital with her face wrapped in bandages isn't actually their mother. It plays on that primal imposter fear. We watch these kids go to extreme, violent lengths to prove she's a fake. The movie frames them as the protagonists, the victims of a cold, strange woman who has replaced their loving mom. But the reveal at the end is a total psychological pivot. The boys aren't the victims. They're the ones living in a fractured reality. It turns out one of the twins, Lucas, actually died in an accident before the movie even started. Elias has been projecting his brother's presence the whole time because he can't process the grief. The mean mother? She's just a grieving woman trying to deal with her son's mental breakdown while recovering from facial surgery. Look at the framing throughout the film. If you watch it again, notice that no one ever speaks to or acknowledges Lucas, except for Elias. The mother only ever brings one plate of food, only addresses one child, and only tries to heal one person. The twist betrays our perspective because we've been seeing the world through Elias's eyes, and he's an unreliable narrator driven by trauma. It turns a creepy parent movie into a devastating study of how loss can literally make you see ghosts. When the house finally goes up in flames, it's not a victory over an imposter, it's the final tragic collapse of a family that was already dead. The flight that never landed in the future. Final Destination 5 did something that almost no fifth installment in a franchise ever manages to do. It actually made the entire series better. For the whole movie, we think we're watching a standard sequel. People die in elaborate Rube Goldberg-style accidents after a suspension bridge collapse. Our leads, Sam and Molly, seemingly beat death and get on a plane to Paris to start a new life. We think we've seen this movie before. The survivors win, the cycle ends, and we go home happy. Then, they take their seats on the plane, and then a group of teenagers gets into a fight and is escorted off. If you're a fan of the original 2000 film, your heart starts to sink. We realize they aren't on just any plane, they're on Flight 180. The entire movie was a prequel. The visual cue here is brilliant. Look at the technology. Sam is using a bulky, older-style laptop and a flip phone. We just assumed it was a low-budget choice or a character quirk, but the director was planting the timeline right in front of us. When the plane's engine explodes and we see the familiar footage from the first movie, it's a massive oh no moment. It betrays our sense of linear time. The survivors literally flew right back into its mouth at the very beginning of the timeline. It turns the movie from a survival story into a closed loop of fate, proving that in this universe, you don't cheat death, you just delay the inevitable. These aren't your grandparents. M. Night Shyamalan returned to form with The Visit, and he did it by tapping into the inherent creepiness of the uncanny valley in old age. Two kids go to stay with grandparents they've never met while their mom goes on vacation. The grandparents start acting weird. Grandma is crawling around under the house at night. Grandpa is hiding diapers in the shed. We think, okay, it's a movie about dementia, or maybe some weird cult stuff. We're looking for a supernatural explanation. The twist is much more grounded and much more terrifying. The kids finally manage to Skype their mom and show her the grandparents, and she goes pale and tells them those aren't your grandparents. It turns out the real Nana and Pop Pop were killed by 2 escaped patients from the mental hospital where they volunteered, and these strangers have just been playing house with the kids for a week. The visual horror here is all about the performance. Once you know they're imposters, Grandma's sundowning stops looking like a medical condition. The scene where she's scratching at the door takes on a whole new level of dread. The movie betrays our sense of safety within the family unit. We assume that a house with grandparents is the safest place on earth, and Shyamalan turns it into a trap where the people who are supposed to protect you are the very things you should be running from. The horror of being a passenger in your own body. Jordan Peele's Get Out is a masterpiece of social commentary, but at its heart, it's a terrifying body horror movie. We spend the first 2 acts feeling Chris's discomfort as he visits his white girlfriend's family. We see the microaggressions, the weird comments, and the strange behavior of the black servants. We suspect something is wrong. Maybe it's a cult, maybe they're just racist. But the reality is far more medical and far more grotesque. The reveal of the coagula is the moment the movie shifts from a thriller to a nightmare. The family isn't just racist. They're using a surgical procedure to transplant the consciousness of old, wealthy white people into the bodies of young, healthy black people. Chris isn't a guest. He's an organ to be harvested. The visual of the sunken place is the key here. Look at how Peele frames Chris, floating in that black void, looking up at a small rectangular screen of his own eyes. He's still in there, but he has no control. He's a passenger in his own skin. It's a betrayal of the most basic human right, the ownership of your own body. The twist works because it takes the abstract feeling of being unseen or marginalized and turns it into a literal, physical horror. The family's kindness wasn't just a facade, it was a sales pitch. They didn't want to kill him, they wanted to be him, which is infinitely more disturbing. Once you watch it back, every compliment they gave him about his genetics or his eyes sounds a whole lot darker. They were taking inventory of a product they were about to buy. The rule breaker who brought a friend. In 1996, Scream changed everything by being the first movie to tell the audience, "We know you've seen horror movies. It was meta, it was smart, and it played with the rules." We spent the whole movie trying to figure out who Ghostface was. Was it the boyfriend, Billy? He was the most obvious choice, so we ruled him out because it's never the obvious guy. Was it the principal? The cameraman? We were looking for that one person who fit the profile. The twist betrayed the most fundamental rule of the slasher genre. There is only one killer. When Billy gets stabbed and then later reveals he's alive, it's a shock. But the real kicker is when Stu picks up the second costume. There were 2 killers. Every time we thought we had an alibi for one of them, like when Billy was in jail while a murder was happening, it was actually the other one doing the work. Look at the choreography of the earlier scenes. Once you know the truth, the way Ghostface moves changes slightly depending on who is in the suit. Billy is more methodical. Stu is more frantic and clumsy. The movie betrays our investigative logic. We were looking for the killer, but we should have been looking for the killers. It made the threat feel twice as large and half as predictable. By breaking the singular killer trope, Wes Craven ensured that no one was ever truly safe, and he forced the audience to realize that the rules they thought they knew didn't apply anymore. It was a betrayal of the genre itself, and it's why Scream still feels fresh today. The mirror that swapped places. Jordan Peele's Us is a movie that gets more disturbing the more you think about the logistics. We follow Adelaide, a woman who was traumatized as a child when she met her doppelganger in a funhouse. Now, as an adult, those doppelgangers, the tethered, are rising up from the tunnels to reclaim the surface. We root for Adelaide. We want her to protect her family. She is our final girl, the survivor who fought her way out of the dark. Then comes the final flashback. We see the funhouse encounter again, but this time it doesn't end with a jump scare. We see the tethered version of Adelaide choke out the real girl, drag her into the tunnels, and take her place. The woman we've been following for the entire movie, the one we've been rooting for, is actually the monster from the basement. And the monster leading the revolution, Red, she was the original human girl who spent decades in the dark, forced to eat raw rabbit and plan her revenge. Look at the performance by Lupita Nyong'o. When she's playing Adelaide, she has this slight, almost imperceptible stiffness, as if she's constantly practicing how to be human. When she's Red, her voice is a rasping, broken mess because she never learned to speak properly. The twist betrays our moral alignment. We've been cheering for the usurper and fearing the victim. It turns the entire concept of good and evil into a matter of geography. It's a gut punch because it tells us that our identity isn't something innate, it's something that can be stolen. And if you live in the light long enough, everyone will believe you belong there. The movie that deleted its own hero. Finally, we have to talk about Barbarian. This movie is the ultimate narrative betrayal. For the first 40 minutes, we are locked into a very specific kind of thriller. Tess arrives at an Airbnb, finds it's been double-booked by a guy named Keith, played by Bill Skarsgård, and we spend the whole time waiting for him to be the creep. We're looking for the hidden cameras, the drugged wine, the standard bad man reveal. The tension is high, the lighting is warm and domestic, and we're fully invested in Tess's survival. Then, she finds the door in the basement. She goes down, Keith goes down, and then crunch. Keith is killed by a monstrous mother figure, and the screen goes black. But the movie doesn't continue with Tess. It cuts to a bright, sunny car ride in California, with Justin Long playing a total jerk of an actor. The movie just restarts. It's a total genre shift. We go from a claustrophobic thriller to a dark comedy, and then, eventually, into a full-blown creature feature. This twist betrays the audience's narrative contract. We were told this was Tess's story, and then the movie basically deleted her as a protagonist for 30 minutes to introduce a new character. Look at the visual contrast between the damp, gray basement and the saturated, golden California sun. It's jarring. By the time we get back to the house, we have no idea what the rules are anymore. Zach Cregger knows that the best way to keep an audience terrified is to make them feel like the movie itself is unstable. Pretty wild how a simple shift in perspective or a well-placed prop can completely wreck our sense of reality, right? Which of these reveals actually made you scream at your screen? Let me know in the comments. See you next time.